Okay, and Commissioner Musharrafi? Chair Pruitt, looks like you have everyone except Commissioner Musharrafi present.
Thank you so much. And maybe one of our NMED staff, I know we have both Milena Ortiz and Alan Pura on board here to assist. Maybe one of them could reach out to Commissioner Musharrafi and see if he's having trouble getting online. We also have with us today Commission Counsel Robert Sanchez. I think I've seen your name. Are you with us this morning, Counsel?
Chair, I am present, and hopefully I'll won't have the technical difficulties I had last time, for which I apologize. I'm sorry that those were so problematic.
Well, glad to have you on board this morning, Council. Thank you. So, as you know, people, today's meeting is a virtual meeting being conducted through the WebEx platform because of the continuing COVID-19 epidemic in New Mexico and the resulting public health orders and guidelines. It is a public meeting being conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, New Mexico statutes annotated 1978, sections 10-15-1 through 4. The open or public portion of this meeting is being recorded as it would be normal if we were meeting in person. The closed session, if there is one, will not be open to the public and will not be recorded, and it will therefore not be available for public review. Matters discussed in the closed session will be limited only to those specified in the motion for closure, and any action and votes on those matters will be taken in open session and recorded. If we do go into a closed session, commissioners, we would activate a second WebEx session for you, but we'll wait and see if we need that. We have established a protocol for commission members and public participation in this meeting. As a courtesy to everyone listening, please, all participants should mute and are muted until they speak. All commission members and members of the public must identify themselves whenever they speak and must be clearly audible to other commission members and to the public. We should all, commission members, and, staff, and the public should all avoid speaking over one another as much as possible because that can't get picked up on the WebEx. All votes of commission members during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote to provide a clear record. And the commission chair will suspend the meeting if there is a break or an interruption in the audio or video. If the commission moves into closed session, the public meeting portion and the telephone line will remain open. Everybody will be muted. You may remain on that public meeting during the closed session, and staff will put up little notes about what's going on visible on the screen. Commission members will return to that public portion once the closed session is completed, and hopefully people can stay online and just do whatever they want while we are on executive session, if that is requested and voted on. So, commission members, or anyone else, does anyone have a question about the protocol or how we're going to run this meeting? Okay, I'm going to assume everybody understands this. And of course, if people have questions along the way, please feel free to put something in the chat or raise your hand or say something, and we will try to make sure that we address any questions that come up. So that was number one on our agenda. Number two on our agenda is approval of today's agenda. And we will need a motion and a and a second on the agenda.
This is Deputy Secretary Cornwell. I move to approve the agenda.
Good morning, this is Gabriel Wade. I second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the agenda, commissioners?
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Musharafi. So glad you could join us. We will add you to our list of participating members. We have just had a motion and a second to approve today's agenda.
Madam Chair, I was all along, I could hear you, but it seemed from my side there were some technical difficulties that you could not hear me, but all along I was hearing what the commission was, the introduction and everything else.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you did not miss anything, Commissioner Musharafi. Ms. Jones, would you go ahead and call the vote on the agenda, please? Roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Certain,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Musharafi,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Pruitt.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, the vote is unanimous.
Thank you very much. So, moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, approval of the meeting minutes from the September 8th meeting. I'll need a motion on that.
This is Commissioner Timmons. I move to approve the minutes from September 8th.
This is Commissioner McWilliams. I second that.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there discussion or edits for the minutes? I did have some, so maybe I will just go through these. It's my suggestion that all we need to say on these minutes is that it was conducted as a virtual meeting on WebEx. I don't really know that we need the WebEx information on there or the contact information to staff with their phone numbers for people having problems. Does anybody see a reason to leave that on? Okay, and then on page, I'm sorry, did I miss something? Okay, page 3, lines 102 and 3, in discussing the public comment, I would like to add that Chair Pruitt advised Mr. Kern that public comment was not appropriate for specific action items and that the technical type of testimony that Mr. Kern was presenting went beyond the bounds of public comment. I think it's important to add that language because it is referred to later in the minute information on that specific item number 6. And I think it's important to point out we had a conversation about that and direction to Mr. Kern when he was making that comment. On page 5, lines 179 and 180, the minutes say that Council Sanchez made the comment that paragraph 13 of the settlement agreement was not in compliance with NMEC 20-1-3-22. We need to correct the citation form of that, but also I think it's important to add, because it did not state the petitioner agrees to the jurisdictional allegations of the compliance order. There's quite a lot in that rule section, and I want to make it clear what Mr. Sanchez's point was. I have a couple of grammatical edits on page 5, lines 224, 225, so that it would read, Commissioner Thompson moved to approve the base interest rates and to adopt the priority ranking system as modified so that sustainability would be 150 points and so that criteria for a rate structure would be established to allow for replacement costs. I think that's a little clearer. Then later down on page 6, lines 238 through 232, I would like to add at the very beginning, although not provided in advance with the opportunity for public review, comma, that's the new language, Chair Pruitt allowed Council Weatherly to show, different word, a brief new word PowerPoint summary presentation concerning the water quality management plan, comma, new language on the advice of Council Sanchez that it could assist the commission in understanding the matter being presented. That was the advice of council, and that was what I deferred to. On page 6, lower down, lines 261, it says, describes that NMED gave the commission a brief summary of the Rio Chama. They did not give a summary of the TMDL. They gave a brief summary of the request for approval of the Rio Chama total maximum daily load. We need to add the words request for approval of the. And in the next paragraph, I would like to add some language so that it would read, the commission discussed the public's opportunity to make comments on the TMDL at a commission meeting. Commissioner Dominguez stated that historically, comma, commission TMDL approvals have included public comment. The question there, as you will recall, was not whether there had been an opportunity for public comment in general, but whether the commission was going to allow it at the next commission meeting when we did our approval. And so, and the next sentence I would like to read, Chair Pruitt stated that if the public has submitted written comments, those would be posted to the website so we can make it clear that we are including all the public comment. On page 7, at line 282 or so, I think it's important to insert in there that the commission took a 15-minute break between items 10 and 11, because that explains why then at the beginning of the next action item, we took a roll call vote. So those are my comments for the commissioner's consideration in adopting those minutes. So perhaps I might have an amendment to the motion made to either adopt or reject my suggested edits.
This is Commissioner Timmons. I would propose that we adopt those amended edits. I don't know how to say that. Yes. I move to adopt those edits.
This is Commissioner McWilliams. I will second that motion.
All right, so I think we have council. You can advise me if I'm skipping through too many steps, but I believe we have pending a motion to adopt the minutes with the edits suggested by the chair. Can we go ahead and do a roll call vote on that?
Yes, you can. With the motion being amended to include the changes that you entered into the record or proposed changes you entered into the record.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Jones, would you please call a roll call vote on that motion?
Yes. Commissioner Candelario, how did you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton?
Yes.
Commissioner Cornwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams?
Yes.
Commissioner Musharafi?
Yes.
Commissioner Patton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rader?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cipher?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Wade?
Yes.
Chair Pruitt?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is unanimous.
Thank you very much, and thank you, commissioners. Next on our agenda, item number 4 is public comment. And this is the time when we allow members of the public who would like to comment on some matter of water quality or have something they want to tell commissioners. This is their chance to do that. So it's a little tricky on our virtual platform, but at this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone on this virtual meeting that would like to make a public comment. If so, please speak up. Right, thank you. Having waited about 15 seconds and not seeing or hearing any requests for a public hearing, for public comment, I'm gonna assume that there are no requests at this time. So thank you. We will move on to item number 5. Request for Water Quality Control Commission approval of the final total maximum daily load for the Rio Chama watershed, which is WQCC number 20-53. John Verhule, counsel for the New Mexico Environment Department, is here, I see. Morning, John. Rachel Jankowitz and Heidi Henderson from NMED's Surface Water Quality Bureau I have also seen on the call. So at this time, I will turn this over to Mr. Verhule to present their request. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the Commission as well. My name is John Verhule. I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Environment Department, Office of General Counsel. As the Chair noted, with me today are Rachel Jankowitz and Heidi Henderson from our Surface Water Quality Bureau. You will recall we appeared before you at your September meeting requesting a hearing for the approval of the final draft total maximum daily load for the Rio Chama watershed. Just as a little bit of background, the Section 303D of the Federal Clean Water Act requires states to develop total maximum daily load management plans for water bodies determined to be water quality limited. This commission is the state water pollution control agency for all purposes of the Federal Clean Water Act. Responsibilities for activities involving surface water, including development of TMDLs, are delegated to the Department's Surface Water Quality Bureau. And so this total maximum daily load document has been developed, and the Surface Water Quality Bureau is here this morning seeking your final approval of the document before they present it to the Environmental Protection Agency. So with that introduction, I'll hand it off to Rachel and Heidi, and I believe one of them will share a screen with a presentation.
John, I'm not hearing anything. Are we having some?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
But we can't see anything except it says you're starting to share content.
It's up on my screen.
Is anyone on the WebEx? There we go. Now I see it.
Yeah, it's saying it was starting, so I guess it took a little while to get there. Do you see the slide? Do you see the slide that says Rio Chama Watershed TMDLs?
No, we see your whole screen. And so we see the rest of the slides along the left, and the Chama Watershed TMDL's opening screen is quite small. Maybe you can go to full screen mode so that we can get in.
I'm looking for it. I'm so sorry, Madam Chair. I am looking for it. It showed up by itself in the practice session.
Hi, Rachel, it's Heidi. Just real quick, underneath the picture of the slide in the bottom right-hand corner, right underneath where the river reaches, there's a picture, a small rectangle with a line underneath it. There you go. Yeah, there it is.
I have to go back to the previous slide. Full screen slide.
Yes.
We're ready. We are requesting approval of the TMDLs for the Rio Chama watershed. The purpose of the Federal Clean Water Act is to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's water. Water quality that provides for the protection and propagation of fish, shellfish, and wildlife, and provides for recreation in and on the water. Section 303D of the Clean Water Act requires states to develop TMDLs as part of its continuing planning process. The Clean Water Act framework for restoring polluted waters is to develop water quality standards, monitor and assess water bodies. We list the 303D list. The step we're in now is we've developed the TMDL, and once that has approval from the WQCC and the EPA, we move to implementation for permits for point sources and for non-point sources. we use best management practices so the TMDL is the maximum amount of a pollutant that to the stream without causing an impairment or an exceedance of the water quality standard. It's calculated by multiplying the water by the critical flow of the water body times a conversion factor, which just converts it so that we can express it as daily load, such as pounds per day. Document is a water quality plan that establishes specific goals to meet water quality standards. It includes pollution reduction estimates and information and suggestions leading to the development of watershed-based plans. The TMD quantity is further allocated to a load allocation, which is pollution from versus waste load allocation, which is pollution from a known confined source, and a margin of safety to account for uncertainty in factors such as laboratory analysis or stream flow data. 40 CFR section 130.6 requires New Mexico to incorporate TMDLs into the statewide water quality management plan. Federal public participation requirements for the TMDL are also found in the CFR. With Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, the EPA may not issue a permit that is in conflict with state-adopted water quality standards, including the TMDLs. NMED issues a Section 401 certification for each permit to require more stringent conditions if it is required by the state water quality standards. And I've lost my cursor just a second while I try to get to the next slide. For these current TMDLs, which we're requesting approval, we have TMDLs 2 for E. coli bacteria, 3 for sedimentation and siltation of the stream bed, and 3 temperature impairment. And I would draw your attention to the asterisk at the bottom of the slide. There are no NPDES permits discharging to these assessment units for this TMDL. The public participation process, the 30-day public comment period started May 1st and ended June 1st. The TMDL was made available for public review via the SWQB website and upon request. Public notice of the TMDL was published on the website on May 1st, first day of the public comment period. And the notice was also sent to our email list containing over 1,750 email addresses. We held a virtual public meeting on May 6th. 4 stakeholders attended, WQB staff. Comments during the meeting pertain to microbial source tracking, drinking water, existing TMDLs in the watershed, the watershed-based planning process, and our monitoring schedule. And I would just explain that microbial source tracking is a analysis technique by which the sources of E. coli bacteria can be narrowed down to a species or group of species, thereby providing more information toward implementing recovery. 2 sets of public comments were received from Dr. James Morgan. Dr. Morgan, I believe, is a member of the Cimarron Watershed Group, but he was commented as an individual, and also from the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. The changes to the public draft after the comments resulting in this final draft of the report, which you have. Minor editorial corrections were made. We had inadvertently included a previous version of Appendix C, which explains how the temperature TMDL is calculated. We replaced that with the correct version, which addressed some of Dr. Morgan's comments. Responses to the public comments were drafted and included as Appendix E, and Section 8 on public participation was updated. On July 22nd, the final draft TMDL was made available to the public and WQCC via posting on the website. TMDL has been reviewed by NMED's Office of General Counsel and is in accord with applicable state and federal laws. Notice of the final draft was emailed on August 3rd to the commenters who provided public comment on the public comment draft, and we are recommending now that the Commission approve and incorporate the TMDL as proposed. If the TMDL is approved by yourselves, the signed order would be posted to the website. A letter requesting TMDL approval and approval of the update to the continuing management plan will be sent to EPA Region 6, along with the signed WQCC order. And once final approval is received from EPA Region 6, the EPA approval letter and final TMDL will be posted to the SWQB website. Their contact information. At this time, we invite questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Maybe you could take down your screen now so I could see a little better. Commission members, do you have any questions at this time?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. I have 2 questions.
Please proceed, Mr. Commissioner Thompson.
First of all, I noticed that the one of the designated uses of several of those tributaries is public water supply. Are there any public water supplies that use surface water in the watershed?
I think you were going to take that question.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Thompson, I was prepared for Commissioner Thompson's other question, not this one yet. I know, that part too. I'm not personally aware, I hate to put anybody on the spot, but I see our standards coordinators on the meeting. She could possibly speak to that, and but the short answer would be that that designated use is listed in the TMDL because it's listed in the regulatory document of the New Mexico water quality, surface water quality standards. And so it's just pulled over into the TMDL document. None of the, right. So, sorry. If anybody else with surface water wants to speak more to that, but that's why it's listed in the TMDL, because we pull over the designated uses straight from the standard.
Anybody else? I'm concerned that listing a watershed for a use that is not present might establish more stringent criteria that are difficult to achieve, unnecessarily difficult to achieve. So that's probably more appropriate question for when we review the state stream standards. My second question, and again, this came up last week when I was reviewing this, and I apologize. I sent it was actually more of a suggestion rather than a question. I sent it to Heidi this morning, and bless her heart, she responded almost immediately. And that is the listing of the probable causes of E. coli does not include natural regrowth in the sediments. And there's a lot of evidence that this is occurs in some of our watersheds. And I would like to see that listed as a probable cause in this watershed. It's difficult to confirm, but I think it's more likely a source of E. coli than railroad crossings, for example. So I sent this to Heidi earlier this morning, and I don't understand whether or not it can be incorporated. Apparently, there's some EPA considerations, but I would like to see that incorporated as a probable cause in this and other watersheds.
Commissioner Tom, I'm ready to speak to comments. And if I can just jump back to your last, we had some surface water researchers in the background. Just let me know that there are four.
Hold on.
In Rio Chama watershed. Sorry.
Hold on. I need you to state your name before you make any comments so that everybody who perhaps can't see the screen or doesn't recognize your voice knows who's speaking.
My apologies. This is Heidi Henderson with the Surface Water Quality Bureau. I do have a response to Commissioner Thompson's question about public water supplies. It looks like there are 4 in the Rio Chama watershed. And then to your second question, I gave it some more thought after our email conversation this morning. So I am comfortable adding your suggested probable source to the TMDL document in order to move forward with, hopefully move closer toward approval today. The EPA standard list that I mentioned falls more on the database. So we have more flexibility in the TMDL process. So I'm comfortable making that addition to the TMDL document, and then working on the database changes and doing that master EPA list to see which of the EPA probable sources best fits with this suggested probable source. It's a list from EPA that has been static for years. This is new research that's happening in New Mexico and across the country. And I think, probable sources should change as probable sources, as we become aware of new probable sources. So I would need to work on the database side, but as far as approval today for the TMDL, adding your suggestion, Commissioner Thompson, and an addition to Executive Summary Table 1, Executive Summary Table 5, and Table 2.0.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then getting back, are those public water sources, are those surface water sources, or are they groundwater sources? It's not important, but we'll revisit it. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Henderson. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Any other commissioner questions? Does anyone from the public who's at this meeting wish to make a public comment or ask a question? All right, well, perhaps I'm ready for a motion on this.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. I would move that we approve the TMDL subject to the one suggestion that a probable cause for E. coli be included as a natural regrowth in sediments.
Howard Hutchinson, second.
Thank you. Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Jones, would you please call a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Certain?
Yes.
Commissioner Cornwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams?
Yes.
Commissioner Musharafi?
Yes.
Commissioner Patton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rader?
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Wade?
Yes.
Chair Pruitt?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is unanimous.
All right. Mr. Verhule, your request for TMDL is approved. The TMDL is approved with the edit suggested by Commissioner Thompson and Ms. Henderson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is
Commissioner-
Larry Dominguez.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Just a follow-up comment or suggestion, just to help with how we conduct business here. I think once an item's been docketed on the agenda, the commission members are restricted for having interaction with parties presenting before us along the lines of ex parte. So commissioners may want to be cautious of having direct interaction as opposed to having those interactions in a public forum. Commission counsel may want to provide any additional guidance there, but just want to make sure that the commission doesn't cross a line with the ex parte issue.
Commissioner Dominguez, once again, you have brought a very important matter to our attention, and I will let you know I actually sent Council Sanchez an email on this several minutes ago asking the very same question. Mr. Sanchez, would you like to provide some guidance to the commission on this question?
Yes, I would. TMDLs are kind of an anomalous creature when it comes to the existing regular commission. They're neither or strictly adjudicatory matters, nor are they technically rulemaking matters. So we really don't have a developed codification of procedures. But looking at what is embedded or included in both of those, they certainly prohibit ex parte communications. I would agree with Commissioner Dominguez that those should be discouraged and in fact prohibited. I think we're okay here because there's been, I think, a full disclosure, if you will, on the record as to the nature of that, of those conversations or that exchange. And so I think we're in a particular instance, but going forward, that should not happen.
Thank you, Council. And I will, just as a sneak preview, advise you all that this is exactly the kind of reason that I have added the last action item to our agenda, which is to discuss potential rulemaking and procedural development for matters like this that are not clearly within the Commission's current protocol rules. So we'll get to that a little later today. Next, let's move to item number 6, the joint motion to approve the settlement agreement between the New Mexico Environment Department Water Protection Division Surface Water Quality Bureau and Matador Production Company and San Mateo Midstream LLC. This is WQCC number 20-16CO. Andrew Knight, I see on the line, on the camera, is here as counsel for the New Mexico Environment Department. I see Adam Rankin, counsel for Matador Production Company and San Mateo Midstream. Is Caitlin Locke here with us today, Mr. Rankin, or are you pulling the horses on this one?
Madam Chair, it's just myself today.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard Virtue was the hearing officer appointed by the commission on this matter. It's possible that the commission may decide to go into closed or executive session to deliberate on this matter, and that was noted on our agenda. At this time, I would ask Mr. Knight and Mr. Rankin to present their proposal for the commission's consideration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Andrew Knight, and I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Environment Department Office of General Counsel. With me today are Shelley Lemon and Sarah Holcomb from our Surface Water Quality Bureau. And as you say, we are here to present the settlement agreement and our joint motion for the Commission's approval. On April 2nd of this year, the department issued a administrative compliance order to Matador for a release of material that was reported on February 24th. And this release into the Black River in southern New Mexico was, we coordinated with the Oil Conservation Division and New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. And I'd like to express my appreciation to both of those agencies for their help and coordination in this effort. And we, after investigation, we, as I say, on April 2nd, we issued an administrative compliance order, and settlement negotiations were undertaken after that. We were prepared for hearing, and we were able to reach a settlement. We're very pleased with the terms of the settlement we were able to reach, at least from the department's point of view. And we have submitted the signed settlement agreement and a proposed stipulated final order. And we ask the Commission's approval of our settlement agreement. We can certainly go into more detail and answer any questions the Commission has, but I'll let Mr. Rankin say a few words on his end if he'd like to do so.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you very much. I have nothing really further to add unless the Commission has any specific questions, but I just want to say that I'm appearing today on behalf of the respondents, Matador Production Company and San Mateo Midstream LLC. And joining us today by phone is Mr. Matthew Hereford, President of Matador Production Company and San Mateo Midstream LLC as well. So I just want to make sure you understood that Mr. Hereford was with us as well today. And with that, I have nothing further to add other than that we are as well pleased with the outcome of the settlement. We think it's the most beneficial outcome for the river. And with that, I stand for any questions that the Commission may have.
Commissioners, does anyone have any questions for the parties?
Madam Chair, Howard Hutchinson.
Please, Commissioner Hutchinson, with your questions.
This is in regards to the settlement agreement, and this goes to items 14 and 18. is there a difference between the two $15,000 amounts? One is called a administrative fee, and in 18, it's referred to as restoration funds. Are these one and the same, or are these two $15,000 payments?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hutchinson, the original compliance order assessed a civil penalty of $20,000 and also required Matador to perform remediation in the area of the release. The settlement agreement requires a payment of a $15,000 administrative fee, and in addition to that, requires Matador to expend $15,000 to perform a supplemental environmental project to improve the quality of the Black River. So these are indeed separate payments, if you will. One is a payment to the state general fund. The other is money that Matador is required to expend in the performance of this project to improve the river. So the total amount that Matador will be spending here is $30,000, 15 for the administrative fee and 15 for the supplemental environmental project.
Howard Hutchinson again. Thank you for that clarification.
Commissioner Hutchinson, have you finished with your questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, that is all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez, do you have some questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll kind of wrap all of these questions into one, and then maybe more of a question for Environment Department staff. For this particular stream segment, are there currently standards established, and or is there a TMDL established for any of these stream segments? And then the final follow-up, are these actions that are currently proposed going to have any impact on those standards or TMDL?
And Madam Chair, I would defer to staff and Ms. Shelley Lemon of the Surface Water Quality Bureau, who I believe is on the call, if she can answer that question.
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioner Dominguez, this is Shelley Lemon, the Surface Water Quality Bureau Chief for the New Mexico Environment Department. I'm sorry I'm not on video. My connection is a little bit sketchy this morning, so I'm just on audio. To answer your question, Commissioner Dominguez, there are standards that apply to the Black River. We do have established standards for both a narrative sedimentation standard and a narrative turbidity standard. And then we have our aquatic life standards associated with the stream. I do not believe there are any TMDLs for the Black River that we have, but there are, I believe it is impaired. I'd have to go look to see what it is impaired for, but this restoration is expected to improve water quality in the Black River. There may be temporary degradation just because of the activity along the stream banks, but those should be mitigated and are expected to help improve water quality ultimately in the Black River.
This is Commissioner Dominguez. Thank you very much. that covered that particular question. It was mainly of making sure that we weren't going to have a decline there. So that covers that question. My final one is probably more of a comment than a question, and this would go to parts of attachment 1 of the proposed settlement agreement. There was a one-page attachment 1 description of potential locations for the SEP target areas and examples. And within that, towards the bottom of the page, the third bullet from the bottom speaks to preventing livestock or off-road vehicles from disturbing the stream bank and channel by installing barriers and exclusions. And that makes perfect sense to get those stream banks reestablished to prevent runoff. My comment or question leads into the latter part of that sentence of, and possibly installing livestock watering tanks in the uplands. So I'm making the assumption that there are livestock grazing within the area and that they use that stream for watering purposes. If there are exclusions established to prevent disturbance, then it almost becomes a necessity for installing alternative livestock watering so that you're not preventing multiple uses on that land. So I think the wording that caught my attention was the word possibly in front of installing livestock watering tanks. So just want to throw that out there more as a comment and in hopes that the right thing will be done. We just don't want to, in the course of trying to do the right thing here of preventing disturbances, that we actually curb other land uses within the area. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Does any other commissioner have some questions? Commissioner Thompson, I see your lips moving, but you are still muted.
How about now?
Thank you.
I'm looking
Commissioner
at
Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the same attachment 1 that Commissioner Dominguez was referring to. It's talking about installing fiber rolls, baffles. I'm looking at the bottom of the page, the first bullet, installing fiber rolls, baffles, rock log dams, etc., to reduce the power of storm flows. If this is going to occur in the arroyo, will that activity for the supplemental environmental project require obtaining a 404 permit from the Corps of Engineers? And if so, that will likely delay the project considerably.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Thompson, this is Shelley Lemon with the Surface Water Quality Bureau. It is possible if there is activity within the stream channel, there is potential for a 404 permit. I would remind the commissioners that the definition for waters of the United States has changed recently. and no longer includes ephemeral channels. So it is dependent on how the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determines if a 404 permit is needed, but that is something that would be necessary for the activity to occur, is to make sure that no permits are required, or if there are permits required, that they achieve those. I would also like to point out that the handout that you're looking at are recommendations. We are anticipating a supplemental environmental project plan from Matador and San Mateo that the department will review and approve moving forward. So those were ideas that were submitted, but they are not set in stone. And so that is still to be determined on what activities will occur.
Commissioner Thompson, do you have additional questions, or did that take care of you?
No, that answered my question. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other commissioners with questions? All right. Well, I have a few questions. Mr. Knight, the compliance order issued a civil penalty. This settlement agreement contains an administrative fee. Where do civil penalties paid to the state under compliance orders, where do those civil penalty funds go?
Madam Chair, by statute, civil penalties are paid to the State of New Mexico General Fund.
All right. And having a little background in the Water Quality Act, would you advise the Commission whether the Water Quality Act or regulations mention or provide authority for an administrative fee?
Madam Chair, the administrative fee is a feature of the settlement, and it is not mentioned in the Water Quality Act.
All right. So is there a civil penalty policy that the Surface Water Bureau or department has adopted for the Surface Water Quality Bureau that discusses administrative fees rather than civil penalties?
Let's see, I believe in the context of a administrative compliance order that under the, in the order itself, but in a settlement agreement, generally the parties have the ability to reach a compromise in order to avoid a hearing and avoid the disposition under the Water Quality Act.
Mr. Knight, was that a yes or a no to the Surface Water Quality Bureau having a civil penalty policy that specifically discusses, describes, and approves the use of administrative fees? Because I'm not aware of it.
Madam Chair, that is correct. I don't know of that the civil penalty policy addresses the use of an administrative fee.
What is the date of that civil penalty policy, and is it available on the Surface Water Quality Bureau website?
Madam Chair, I believe it is. I will, if I would defer to Shelley Lemon to offer more specifics on that.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Shelley Lemon. We have a draft penalty policy. It is not a final penalty policy. We are still reviewing and getting that finalized. So it is not available on our website.
Okay, so we're asked to approve an administrative fee rather than a civil penalty, a fee which is not in the Water Quality Act, it is not in the Water Quality Control Commission regulations, and it is not in an approved civil penalty policy. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, I would note that an administrative fee was approved by this commission for the Cannon Air Force Base settlement recently, and the administrative fee in this case was in large part based on the same language as the settlement agreement for Cannon Air Force Base.
And could you explain to the commission why an administrative fee is preferable to a civil penalty in this matter, and whether there are any differences in allowing an administrative fee or any different considerations for administrative fee when dealing with a federal government entity as opposed to a private party?
Madam Chair, in this case, the use of administrative fee as opposed to a civil penalty was a term of the settlement that was requested by the respondent. And personally, I don't know of a policy or other difference between an administrative fee and a civil penalty in where the federal government is a respondent as opposed to a private party. I'm not aware of a difference there.
Okay, well, maybe I should give that question to Mr. Rankin. Mr. Rankin, would you please advise the differences in an administrative fee and a civil penalty for the corporations that you represent? And for example, where those might show up on their tax reports or their reports to their shareholders and boards of directors?
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I'm not a securities attorney, so I can't speak specifically to the issue about how that would appear, but I will say that is where the facts are contested and liability is contested. It was a concern of the respondents that they not agree to a civil penalty, and as Mr. Knight stated, it was a term of the settlement, so that not to admit liability, and so because the facts were disputed, and so for that reason, as part of the negotiations, we agreed to a term defining the payment as an administrative fee. Aside from potential SEC issues and reporting to shareholders as well, there are other concerns. In this case, Matador and San Mateo has been operating in New Mexico with its officers for close to 40 years, and has never had a penalty or fine assessed against it, and believes it is a prudent operator and a good operator, and takes these things very seriously. So, among other reasons, it likes to keep a clean record and for good reason. And so, in this case, the term is a more appropriate term in light of the facts and the disputed issues. So I guess if that's an answer, that's essentially where that term comes from and why it's being used here.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will note that I did read, notice, and appreciate the fact that paragraph 12 in this settlement agreement admits the jurisdictional allegation of compliance order, which is a requirement in the rules that has been noted as missing in some prior settlements. And so I was very glad to see that, and I know that will make Council Sanchez very happy. My next question is on a similar vein regarding the supplemental environmental project. The compliance order ordered Matador to complete reclamation and address any effects of this spill. And it looked to me like many of the suggested supplemental environmental projects in attachment 1 were kind of similar to that. Will the work that's going to be required under the supplemental environmental project, is that work that would have been required under the regulations anyway?
Madam Chair, no, it is not. It will have a similar effect, we believe, on improving the quality of the river, but this is not work that would have otherwise been required.
Thank you for that. And does the Surface Water Quality Bureau have any current policy on supplemental environmental projects? The terms and features of them, is there a policy on that that's been approved and available on the website?
Madam Chair, this is Shelley Lemon. No, we do not have a supplemental environmental project policy. We have used supplemental environmental projects at various locations throughout the state, but we don't have a policy in place to dictate what is in a supplemental environmental project. It's dependent on the outcome that is desired.
Ms. Lemon, is there anything in the draft penalty policy that addresses supplemental environmental projects?
Madam Chair, I don't know off the top of my head. I can find that out for you, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, I'll just say for me, I would be a whole lot more comfortable with these kinds of settlement terms, seeing a penalty policy that guarantees us some consistency and some guardrails, as opposed to sort of one-offs, depending on what particular parties want in a particular matter. So I would encourage the Bureau and the department to get to work on that civil penalty policy. I think it would be a very helpful document for the future. But that's all the questions that I have. Do any other commissioners want to add anything or have any additional questions? All right. Do we have any public comments or questions on this matter?
Madam Chair, this is Shelley Lemon. May I go back to your question about the supplemental environmental projects?
Sure.
I looked up our draft penalty policy, and it does have a section, Section 8, that covers supplemental environmental projects, definitions, sub-criteria, subcategories, and penalty mitigations.
Very good. I'm glad that's in process. Thank you for looking that up for me, Shelley Lemon. Commissioners, I guess it's time for a motion, which could be approving or denying the proposed settlement agreement. It could be to enter into closed session. What is the commission's pleasure? Yes, is this Council Sanchez? Yes.
It is Council Sanchez, just so we don't get into any of phrasing difficulties. did last time with Canon. Let me remind the commission that under 20.1.22B1, what the commission is approving is a stipulated final order signed by the parties and not approving the settlement agreement itself. Under B1, the stipulated final order should include all the terms and conditions agreed to by the party. And there's been some difficulty in getting counsel for the parties submit an actual stipulated final order signed by them rather than another form of order. Thank you.
Council, would either of you like to speak to that?
Madam Chair, this is Andrew Knight, and in this case, both council have signed the stipulated final order, as well as the clients have signed the settlement agreement.
Does the administrator have the stipulated final order? Where is the stipulated final order?
Madam Chair, the stipulated final order was filed with the commission and should have been distributed to all commission members, including yourself. And I can defer to the administrator about where exactly the original, if you will, stipulated final order sits right now. But all commissioners should have received a copy of it.
Madam Chair, this is Howard Hutchinson. It is in our packet.
All right, does that take care of your problem, Mr. Sanchez?
Wasn't a problem to clarify that the commission was approving the stipulated final order and not the settlement agreement as was misunderstood when the Canon settlement came before the commission.
And with that, Madam Chair, this is Howard Hutchinson. I would move that we approve the stipulated final order in the matter of New Mexico Environment Department, Water Protection Division versus Matador Production Company. Contained within that is the settlement agreement.
This is Gabriel Wade. I would second that motion.
All right, commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll ask our administrator to call our roll call vote, please.
Okay, beginning with Commissioner Candelaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Musharafi,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Pruitt.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, commissioners, I think we have probably another 45 minutes to an hour to go on our agenda here. Is this a time you all would like to take a break, or would you like to push forward and get her done?
Howard Hutchinson, I think we should just push on through.
Gabriel Wade, I agree.
All right. I just don't want to be accused of being the mean chair who didn't ask. So we will continue with number 7 on our agenda. Request for hearing and appointment of hearing officer for proposed amendments to standards for interstate and intrastate waters, 20.6.4 NMAC, affectionately known as the Triennial Review, which is WQCC number 20-51R. John Verheuel, I see, is here as counsel for the Environment Department. Would you please present your request for hearing, Mr. Verheuel?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I will respectfully pass this along to my co-counsel, Annie Maxfield, who unfortunately was not on the agenda, but she'll actually present our request for hearing and then we'll respond to any questions or comments as appropriate.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. You will note that I am on the petition there, but for whatever reason, I'm not on the agenda this morning, just in case you wonder why I am talking to you right now. Along with my co-counsel, John Verheuel, whom has already introduced himself, I do also have members of the Surface Water Quality Bureau with me this morning that have worked on the Triennial Review, to include Shelley Lemon, the Bureau Chief, and Jennifer Fulham, the team leader for standards, planning, and reporting. And I know there are a few others out there as well, such as Diana Aranda, and I see Chris Barrios. It's a little bit more complicated when I don't have all of you here in the same room with me to see who's here, but there may be a couple others as well, and I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning everyone. But at any rate, Madam Chair and Commissioners, we are before you today to request a hearing on the New Mexico Environment Department Surface Water Quality Bureau's petition. And this is a petition to amend the Commission's regulations at 20.6.4 of the New Mexico Administrative Code, which from this point forward, I'm going to refer to as NMAC, just because that's kind of a mouthful. And these are the standards for interstate and intrastate surface waters. So as we noted in the rulemaking petition, the Federal Clean Water Act at 33 United States Code section 1313C1, and then the Commission's regulations at 20.6.4.10A NMAC require at least once every 3 years that the state hold public hearings for the purpose of reviewing applicable water quality standards and then proposing, as appropriate, any necessary revisions to those water quality standards. And as you mentioned previously, Madam Chair, this process is generally known as the Triennial Review. And the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency approved the last revisions to the Triennial Review to these regulations in August of 2017. And so therefore the department filed this petition in August of 2020. So pursuant to the state's Water Quality Act, this commission is the water pollution control agency for the state for all purposes of the Federal Clean Water Act. And the department's proposing a number of revisions that are intended to update and clarify the standards and bring them in line with the relevant statutory and regulatory provisions. And I'm just going to briefly summarize here the highlights of what you have seen in the petition and what you have in the amended version of the regulations that we submitted for consideration. And these revisions include adding language to clarify that an objective of the standards is to address climate change. The department has also proposed extensive additions to the definitions section in 20.6.4.7 NMAC, as well as amendments to existing definitions that are already there just to add clarity. The department's also proposing revisions and additions to the use attainability analysis section, which is in 20.6.4.15 MAC, to provide additional clarity and also to provide consistency with the water quality management plan and continuing planning process. The department's also proposing to amend the recreational designated use from secondary contact to primary contact in several sections, as demonstrated through an existing use analysis. The department's proposing to clarify that non-perennial tributaries are not classified as perennial in a number of sections. And the department is proposing to provide more refined and accurate designations of waters on the Pajarito Plateau, and then also is proposing extensive updates to the criteria applicable to existing designated or attainable uses section based on EPA recommendations for criteria that are adopted under Section 304A of the Federal Clean Water Act. So the department did implement extensive public notice and engagement with the stakeholders regarding these proposed rule amendments. And some examples of the stakeholder engagement are 3 stakeholder group meetings that were held to include industry and federal facility representatives, municipalities, and non-governmental organizations. And then the department is also going to issue a public comment draft of the proposed amendments to solicit comments, and this will take place for a period of no less than 30 days. And those will be available for comment and review no later than Monday, November 2nd, 2020. And then further, the department plans to hold 2 public meetings during this public comment period that I just described in order to solicit feedback on the proposed amendments. And due to the fact that we currently have the COVID-19 public health restrictions, those will take place via WebEx, just like the format that we're having this commission meeting in here today. So as for a date for this proposed hearing, the department requests that the commission set the matter for hearing on July 13th of 2021. And this is a way out in the distance, but we do expect that the hearing will take approximately 4 days. Could be a little more or a little less, depending on the level of public interest and participation. And also due to the relatively complex nature of this proceeding as well, we expect that there will be a number of parties. So the department does request that the commission appoint a hearing officer and that the hearing officer develop specific orders for this proceeding to set forth timelines and procedures for things such as pre and post hearing submittals, pre-filed written testimony, the public hearing itself, such as the order of witnesses and time for public comment. And the timeframes and procedures, of course, would have to be consistent with the commission's rulemaking procedures, which can be found at 20.1.6 NMAC. And so specifically, the department envisions proposals from other parties that are not in the department's proposed amendments, but are directly related or are logical outgrowths of the amendments that we've proposed, and that these would be filed 100 prior to the hearing. That parties' notices.
Ms. Maxfield, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You broke up a little bit saying that. Could you say you envision those people submitting those things, something about 180?
Oh, yes, Madam Chair. Sorry, I hope that my internet connection is holding up here. I was just going over briefly the timeline that we were hoping to have a hearing officer set in a scheduling order for this upcoming proceeding. And we request that any proposals that other parties submit for amendments that are directly related to or are logical outgrowths of our proposed amendments, we request that those would be filed 120 days prior to the hearing, which is a good 4 months or so. And then we would request that parties' notices of intent to provide technical testimony and full written direct testimony to be filed 60 days prior to the hearing. And then parties' rebuttal testimony in response to the testimony of other parties filed, that would be submitted 30 days prior to the hearing. So the department thinks that such a schedule would enable all the parties to fully develop the arguments for and against the proposed amendments prior to the hearing. And hopefully this would assist the commission in its role and would also give all parties adequate time to reach compromises and agreements with respect to some of the proposed amendments prior to the hearing. And then hopefully this would narrow the scope of the hearing itself, just so everyone could be hopefully on point once we get in there for the hearing before the commission. And subject to your questions, Madam Chair, that is, and any other commissioners, that's our proposal before you here today.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments on this matter? Wow, such quiet commissioners. You all must have really gotten relaxed during this long weekend. Okay. Well, I think though the way that we would do this, I would just note that I've sped ahead to my Outlook calendar, and July 13th is the second Tuesday in July, and that would be at our regularly scheduled commissioner meeting. So if there were other things on the agenda today, that day, we might only have a partial day on that day, and then we would have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which might or might not allow us to wrap it up during that week. We don't have security guards chasing us out of the Capitol at 5 o'clock, so we can have our virtual meetings go on a little bit longer in the day to try to get things done. But I just wanted to mention that kind of scheduling question and make sure that commissioners understand that this would be a situation of them making themselves available for pretty much the entire week that week to hear all the evidence on that matter. So it looks to me like Commissioner Hutchinson would like to share some thoughts with us on that.
Yes, Madam Chair, I don't wish the triennial review on anybody. I think that the new commissioners are going to be unpleasantly surprised by the complexity of the issues and the various participating entities that will present their views on the various amendments, and other than the Environment Department's suggested changes as well. With that, I would move that we grant the request for a hearing and have the chair make the appointment of the hearing officer for the proposed amendments to standards for interstate and intrastate waters.
Madam Chair, this is David Cipher. I would second that motion.
Have a motion and a second, commissioners. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, Larry Dominguez. Just to add to Commissioner Hutchinson's comments, the term complexity that he utilized is probably an understatement. So I think a couple of things that Ms. Maxfield pointed out that hopefully the hearing officer would get established ahead of time is in regard to any other proposals. I think that's a very good idea of having some sort of time frame for other proposals from other parties to be well in advance. That can help streamline the mess that comes before the commission, as opposed to parties bringing up ideas a few days prior to the hearing or proposing stuff at the hearing. Those just complicate and lengthen the process. So I think it's warranted that if there are parties that want to be that involved, proposing things, that they be well thought out and submitted well in advance, so there can be common ground found if that's possible, and that everybody's fully aware of what those additional proposals are. I think it's unfair to the commission to have extremely late proposals and for the commission to be able to weed through those items in the midst of as much of a mess that triennial is, even on a good day. I would also hope that maybe by July of 2021, that this possibly could be done in some version of in-person, because it is overly complicated, as has been brought up, and doing a 4-day virtual meeting might hasten my retirement plans. So that's all of my comments, and I think we move forward.
I have one question for Ms. Maxfield. It sounds like if the commissioner approves this today, and I am assuming that the motion is to grant the request start on July 13th at the conclusion of the commissioner's regularly scheduled meeting. It sounds like, from what you described as the ongoing process, that there would be a little bit of a pause between now and the end of November in terms of the commission and the hearing officer's participation in this matter, although I understand we want a scheduling order as soon as possible. The reason that I mention this, and I'd like the NMED's thoughts on this, we have a new in-house hearing officer starting work on Monday, the 19th. I'm very excited to let you all know. So we are no longer going to have to rely only on contract hearing officers. We will continue to have those hearing officers on contract and available if there's too many hearings needed at the same time for the in-house hearing officer to handle, or if he has some kind of a conflict of interest and can't preside over a particular matter. But this is a particularly complex and controversial kind of a case, and I would like to give the hearing officer a little bit of time to get up to speed on what our rules and processes are. But because this is a major matter that's going to need some consistency over time, and that recurs in theory every 3 years, it would be nice to begin to give the in-house hearing officer some exposure and experience with triennial reviews. I wanted to ask if you all had any thoughts or advice on that.
Madam Chair, the department doesn't have any objection to the new hearing officer who's about to start serving as the hearing officer for this matter. It seems like while NMED continues to have a public comment period and have stakeholder meetings this fall, that would be an opportunity for the new hearing officer to get spun up on procedures a little bit and then also issue a scheduling order. So the scheduling order, that would probably be good to get out definitely in advance of what we're anticipating that March deadline to file comments and other proposals would be. That's 120 days, as I previously mentioned, from the date of the hearing. So that we're anticipating would be the first deadline that the new hearing officer would need to set. So provided that he is able to get his feet under him and issue that scheduling order some point this fall before the first of the year, that would probably be adequate.
Thank you. And commissioners, to add to Commissioners Dominguez and Hutchinson's advance warning and full disclosure, please plan on several weeks ahead of time devoting substantial time to reviewing a very large record, because this is going to be thousands and thousands, dare I say tens of thousands of pages long with lots of different pieces. And it's not something you're going to be able to review the weekend before. All right. Motion, second, discussion. Any additional comments, questions?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. I have a question about dates. The law or regulations require that we hold these hearings once every 3 years, and the last revision was published, I guess, was approved in 2017. So are we in compliance with the requirement that they be held every 3 years? It looks to me like it's 4 years.
I'm going to ask the department to address that question.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. We do interpret this as needing to start the process within 3 years of when it was last finished. So as the commission completed the process in August of 2017, we are required to petition for the next triennial review 3 years after that, which is why we petitioned in August 2020. It's a little bit more of a moving target to figure out the exact date of the hearing, since that will obviously depend somewhat on external factors, such as how many parties there end up being, and the volume of comments and everyone's schedules. So it may not necessarily be practical to hold the hearing within 3 years, but we are doing our due diligence in order to get the petition in within 3 years and believe that that substantially complies with the statute.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Larry Dominguez, to add to Ms. Maxfield's comments to help Commissioner Thompson grasp this, the way this year or this triennial is laying out is not a whole lot different than the many triennials from numerous years past. It is a moving target, and it seems to shift a little bit based on a lot of external factors. So I understand Commissioner Thompson's valid point about the 3 year, but it seems to be a relative scale as far as a moving target. So, but most everything I've seen from this triennial does not differ a whole lot from most every one of the prior triennials.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you. Anything else from commissioners? All right. So we have a motion to approve the schedule as proposed and for me to appoint a hearing officer. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, would you like to call the roll for a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Beginning with Commissioner Candelaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Certain, Commissioner Certain. Okay, we'll circle back to Commissioner Certain. Commissioner Cornwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Musharafi,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
and let me try Commissioner Certain again.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Pruitt.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Ms. Maxfield, do we have a proposed order on this?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did submit that when we filed the petition. So the Office of Public Facilitation should have it. If not, we can always send it in again.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. All right. Number 8 on the agenda. Request by petitioner for a new hearing date and acceptance of an amended petition in the matter of the petition for proposed amendments to 20.6.4.9 New Mexico Administrative Code, designation of waters of the Upper Pecos watershed as outstanding national resource waters, which is WQCC number 20-18R. Kelly Noakes and Eric Schlenker Goodrich are counsel for the Western Environmental Law Center on this matter. I see Kelly Noakes. Do we have Mr. Schlenker Goodrich?
Madam Chair, unfortunately, Mr. Schlenker Goodrich had a scheduling conflict today, so it will just be me representing petitioners today.
Okay, thank you very much. And John Verheuel is here as counsel for the New Mexico Environment Department. Alicia Orth is the hearing officer assigned to this matter. Is Ms. Orth here? Doesn't sound like it. All right, well, petitioner presented this request. So Ms. Noakes, please make your presentation and request to the commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, commissioners. My name is Kelly Noakes, an attorney with the Western Environmental Law Center, and I am here before you today representing petitioners San Miguel County, the Village of Pecos, the New Mexico Acequia Association, Molino de la Isla Organics LLC, and the Upper Pecos Watershed Association in this matter. On September 23rd, petitioners filed a request for a new hearing date and a notice of an amended petition with the commission administrator. And if I may, I would like to just briefly address the substance of our recent filing. First is in regards to our scheduled hearing date. At the commission's meeting on May 12th, we requested that the commission schedule a hearing date and appoint a hearing officer for this matter. On June 3rd, the commission issued an order appointing Ms. Felicia Orth as the hearing officer for this matter and scheduling the public hearing to commence at the commission's regular monthly meeting on Tuesday, November 10th of 2020. The commission's June 3rd order also provided that public notice shall be conducted in accordance with the commission's rulemaking procedures in section 20.1 6.201 NMAC. And that regulation provides that the commission shall provide public notice of the proposed rulemaking at least 60 days prior to the hearing, and that publication in both a newspaper of general circulation and in the New Mexico Register are required. In order to meet the 60-day notice requirement for publication in the New Mexico Register, however, notice of the hearing would have had to have been published in the August 25th edition of the New Mexico Register, but it was not. Accordingly, petitioners are hereby respectfully requesting a new hearing date to conform with the 60-day public notice requirement of the regulation. And if the commission schedule so allows, petitioners would like to respectfully request that the new hearing date scheduled to commence at the commission's regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, January 12th of 2021, as this is the next regularly scheduled meeting in which proper notice can be assured. Additionally, petitioners would also like to make a further request that public notice indeed be required, provided in the November 10th edition of the New Mexico Register, which has a submittal deadline of October 29th, in order to comply with the notice requirement of the commission regulations. And I'll note that petitioners are more than willing to assist in drafting the public notice and will gladly coordinate with the commission administrator to ensure timely publication as well. The second issue I would just like to briefly address is our notice of an amended petition filing, which was submitted to the commission administrator also on September 23rd. In July, petitioners met with council and officials at the New Mexico Environment Department to discuss the petition and the department's suggestions for augmenting support for the nomination. In light of this discussion, petitioners have added supplemental data and analysis to their section 20.6.4.9A nominating petition, which was attached as Exhibit 1 to the initial petition filing on April 20th. And petitioners have already filed the amended Exhibit 1 with the commission administrator. And I'll note that the jurisdictional authority and proposed amendments as provided in the initial filing remain unchanged. The statement of reasons for the proposed changes are incorporated into petitioner's nominating petition and have been updated in the amended Exhibit 1. And unless Madam Chair or the commissioners have any questions at this time, on behalf of petitioners, I once again thank you for your consideration of this matter and respectfully request that the commission schedule a new hearing date that allows compliance with the commission's notice regulations. Thank you.
Mr. Verheuel, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I really have nothing to add to Ms. Noak's presentation and request.
Well, I have my question is, how are we going to address the public notice provision? Because as I know Mr. Verheuel is aware, although that section of the rule says the commission does the public notice, Ms. Noakes, you may or may not be aware, the commission has no budget and no money. And the petitioner generally pays for publication in the register and publication in the newspapers. I believe that's why the public notice did not get completed for the prior scheduled hearing. What have you all worked out in terms of supporting the commission in paying for the public notice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I would agree with your assessment in the sense that the regulation does provide that the commission shall provide the public notice. That said, if necessary, petitioners are willing to provide whatever support is necessary to ensure that the public notice gets paid for.
All right, so the request and the request for the new hearing includes the petitioner's commitment to work with the commission administrator both on the language of the public notice, paying for the required publication to ensure the public notice is done correctly to support a January hearing date. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, if that's required, that is correct.
All right, so commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this matter?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dominguez. We'll slate this as a comment/question. Looking at the proposed date that the petitioners have put before us, January 12th, is, well, let me back up one moment. Some of the prior ONRW actions taken by the commission have typically been fairly time consumptive. Not to say that this one may or may not be as complex as some of the previous ones, but just to frame the conversation, some of them have taken numerous days for the hearing, as well as numerous days for deliberations amongst the commission. The fact that January 12th is 1 week before the start of the legislative session, and speaking for myself as, and likely for some of the other commissioners, things get very hectic about that time of the year for some of us. And providing a balancing act of responding to agency mandates related to the legislature, and then devoting the amount of time necessary for an ONRW hearing may be challenging for some designees on this commission. And that concerns me for that proposed hearing date, as to whether all commissioners would be able to be involved, and or that the commission could fully devote the amount of time that's warranted for an ONRW hearing. So I want to throw that out there just to bring that to the surface, that early January, for at least the agency I work for, becomes extremely devoted to legislative actions. And considering this is a 60-day session, I would suspect that some of us will be running on overload at that point in time. So I would suggest that the commission may want to look at a later hearing date. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. I have some concerns about that timing as well. I would ask both Ms. Noakes and Mr. Verheuel to give us their best guess at this time of the estimate needed for the hearing itself, and how many parties or witnesses they think might want to participate. I would note that I believe the commission has received 99, or perhaps by now more than 99, written public comments on this matter. So I do think we need to expect that there will be substantial public participation in this matter. So would you all give us your estimates of time needed for this hearing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would be my estimate that since we do not anticipate this to be an overly long hearing, I would anticipate about a day and a half of a hearing. We intend to have all testimony pre-filed ahead of time. We anticipate on petitioner side to have likely about 5 technical witnesses, and we would propose that they just provide a 10-minute summary of their testimony, which is pre-filed ahead of the hearing date.
So Ms. Noakes, your estimate is a day and a half for everything, including commission discussion and deliberation and public comment. It is not just for petitioners' presentation of their case. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Mr. Verheuel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The department had initially anticipated this would be a relatively short and not overly complex matter, and we actually thought it would be shorter than what Ms. Noakes estimates. We thought perhaps 4 to 6 hours. The department is only going to have 1 or 2 technical witnesses, and they're primarily going to be there once they've submitted their written testimony. They're primarily going to be there to answer questions about the case the petitioner is making. However, that estimate is before learning that there have been 99 public comments submitted thus far and not knowing the substance of those comments.
Thank you. And could each of you kind of describe what kind of a record you think we're going to be looking at in terms of length and complexity of documents so that we can get a sense of what the commission is going to need to, review and prepare for ahead of time, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. From petitioner's side, we have already provided our nominating petition for the commission to begin their review, and our technical witnesses will only augment support for that nominating petition. I anticipate the roughly 5 technical witnesses that we will present no more than 10 to 20 at most pages of technical testimony. And as with Mr. Verheuel's notice of the department's role in the hearing and their technical witnesses, I would say that the petitioner's witnesses will primarily be available to answer questions in the same way, just as well. So for the whole record, we've already submitted our nominating petition, which the amended nominating petition with the amendments, which includes additional data to augment the support for the nomination, is about 140 pages currently, and then I would anticipate roughly maybe 100 pages at most of additional technical testimony from the petitioner's side, in addition to whatever what the amount of technical testimony coming from the department will be. I will also note that no other parties have filed a notice of appearance yet in this matter.
And Madam Chair, from the perspective of the Environment Department, our 1 to 2 witnesses would similarly be submitting written technical testimony of roughly 10 to 20 pages, we would anticipate, with, of course, citation to applicable regulations. We don't anticipate providing any additional exhibits from our side at this time, although, of course, we reserve that right, but I imagine we would rely upon the exhibits submitted by petitioner, as it is them that's making the case for this designation.
And as far as I'm aware, the hearing officer has not issued a scheduling order yet in this matter. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair. However, we have been in discussions with the hearing officer to propose a scheduling order and procedural guidelines to guide the conduct of this hearing, and including the deadlines, but we needed to get the renewed scheduling of the hearing date in order to backtrack those deadlines. Just for reference, what we intend to propose is that all technical testimony be filed at least 60 days prior to the hearing date, and rebuttal testimony within 2 weeks after receipt of the technical testimony. And so all the testimony will be pre-filed well ahead of the hearing date.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Verheuel?
This is the first discussion that I've been exposed to with respect to a scheduling order, so I'll have to check with my client as to whether or not such a scheduling order is acceptable. We had anticipated following the procedural rules in 20.1.6 NMAC, which is a little bit less robust than what Ms. Noakes just proposed, but I think all the parties can certainly discuss that offline.
All right, thank you. So, commissioners, any comments, questions, motions?
Madam Chair, this is Howard Hutchinson. I don't know that we would necessarily be looking at a day and a half. And just to make it clear, has Mr. Verheul or Ms. Knowles been aware of any other parties that wish to offer technical testimony?
Commissioner Hutchinson, I can attest that I am not aware of any other parties that intend to file technical testimony at this point.
Yes, Madam Chair, my previous experience with these hearings, they do go considerably longer once people have received notice of intent to present technical testimony, and once the scheduling order has been sent out, which somewhat coincides with a invitation of parties to enter their notice for technical testimony. I'm in agreement with Mr. Dominguez or Commissioner Dominguez that we may have some surprises when we get into this.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchinson. And I guess I would just add to that, we have 99 filed public comments on this. And in my experience with these kinds of petitions and nominations for outstanding national resource waters, there is robust and passionate public participation. And I expect this one in the Pecos will not be any exception to that rule. To the contrary, I've already seen things in the paper about this, and nothing is even scheduled yet. And I believe a day and a half is a very, very short estimate. I do think 3 or even potentially 4 days is a much more realistic time for this, because I know many members of the public and many New Mexico tribes, pueblos, and nations have already expressed interest in participating in this matter. And so I think we will need substantial time to ensure we allow the public their due in terms of public participation. So, commissioners, a motion, further discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Hutchinson again. I concur with Commissioner Dominguez's concern about the legislative session. Have we looked at dates beyond that, and is that acceptable? When I say dates beyond, dates following the end of the legislative session, would that be acceptable to the currently 2 parties?
Commissioner Hutchinson, I haven't heard that discussion yet. I would point out that the second, as you know, the legislative session goes, I believe, till the third week in March, which would make the first commission meeting after the session Tuesday, April 13th. The meeting after that would be Tuesday, May 11th. I don't think there's been any discussion of those dates, but perhaps we can ask Ms. Noakes and Mr. Verheul to comment on those dates now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With all due respect, I would like to note that the commission is responsible for publishing the public notice, and petitioners are willing to assist with that and never received a request to assist with that. And so the hearing was originally scheduled for November. And so we are respectfully requesting that the first hearing date that is amenable to the commission schedule be scheduled for this hearing to avoid too long of a delay to petitioners' interests. While we would be, of course, we appreciate the commission's consideration of this matter, and we want to work with the commission with your schedules and what would be best. But we do respectfully request that it not be delayed overly too far into the spring, many months past the originally scheduled hearing date because of this public notice issue.
Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The department is amenable to whatever set of dates that the commission ultimately decides on. The comments of Commissioners Dominguez and Hutchinson, as well as your own comments, Chair Pruitt, are certainly well taken. And this being the first that I've heard that there are 99 comments submitted in addition to articles in the news about this matter, I think your suspicions that this could be a more involved proceeding than we initially anticipated could be correct.
Thank you. And just to defend the commission and its administrator a little bit, I would point out that a petitioner is a person with the strongest interest in a matter proceeding and in public notice being provided. We have a new administrator. We have been short-staffed for the better part of 6 months in this Office of Public Facilitation. There is no in-house hearing officer at this time to provide guidance, and the commission cannot give notice without the petitioner reaching out, providing drafts and funds. So I am very happy to hear that we have an arrangement worked out at this point. It is an unusual situation when someone other than the department makes this kind of a petition, and it does not always go smoothly. So I apologize for that. So again, commissioners, do we have a motion for the current date or a future date, or what is the commission's pleasure?
Madam Chair, if I could, Commissioner Dominguez, offer one other item for perspective. This one, based off of what's been indicated of the amount of public comment already received, kind of goes into line with some of the previous ONRW hearings, which typically we get a robust amount of verbal testimony of public comments in conjunction with the written comments. So what that winds up leading to is typically there will be a fairly robust administrative record. And because of that, typically the commission does not go directly into deliberations, but waits for the transcript to be compiled prior to going into deliberations, which then would push out deliberations until after the legislative session. So that may complicate the process one more step by commissioners not being able to go into deliberations within, say, the next regularly scheduled meeting. So it may not be as fresh on everybody's mind if deliberations were put off until the transcript was provided for all commissioners to go through in detail to make sure that we capture all the public comment aspect of it. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Commissioners, a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hutchinson, I, in order to maybe move this along, I will make a motion to schedule or reschedule this hearing for the first commission meeting following the legislative session, which would be April. And let me look and see what that date would be.
I believe it's Tuesday, April 13th.
Then that would be the date that I am moving to reschedule the hearing for.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Patton. I would second that.
Any discussion, commissioners? Hearing none, Ms. Jones, would you please give us a roll call vote on this motion?
Yes. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton?
Yes.
Commissioner Cornwell?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams?
Yes.
Commissioner Musharrafi?
Yes.
Commissioner Patton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rader?
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Wade?
Yes.
Chair Pruitt?
Yes.
Madam Chair, your motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Council Sanchez, I am assuming that rolled into and integral to this motion is not only the schedule, but also the commission's approval of the amended petition. I don't really see that as a commission approval matter. It was filed. I think the commission must accept it. But would you like to give us some advice on that?
Whether there was an order entered approving the petition. If there was, then we don't need to redo that again. We can certainly reference that in the order setting the matter for April. And we should also memorialize the agreement between the various parties as to who will pay for the publication and to what extent the parties will collaborate with the administrator in preparing the requisite notices.
Well, I recall there was an order on the original petition, but but this most recent matter before us came as a request for a new hearing date and acceptance of an amended petition. Do we need to do a specific vote or clarify that the vote we just took included acceptance of the amended petition?
That is correct. The parties, I think, are entitled to amend their petition. Can simply reference that in the order, and that the commission was acting on the petition as amended.
All right. So our vote is fine and disposes of the matter. Correct? Okay, thank you. So that was number 8. Number 9 on the agenda is next meeting and expected upcoming matters. I had thought that I added a new item to the agenda, but I don't see it on any agenda, so I don't think we can discuss it today. So I will tell you that on the next agenda, I would like the commission to have a discussion about the development of some rules for these matters coming before it that are not contemplated or addressed in the current rules. We have 20.1.3 on adjudication, and we have 20.1.6 on rulemaking. And adjudication covers permit review, it covers abatement hearings or abatement plan challenges, it covers variances, and it covers compliance order challenges. None of those procedural rules cover things like approval and adoption of the water quality management plan, or requests for approvals of a TMDL. And there have been numerous times in the last year where the department or a party has requested something, and there has not really been a clear rule about what to do with it. Whether it should be docketed with an official commission number, which I have instructed the administrator to do, but isn't in the rules. Whether to require the provision of materials in advance and posting them on the website so the public can see everything in a transparent way, and then have the commission consider those materials and the request at a subsequent meeting. I have faced a lot of questions and a lot of concern about that as a process, which I think is very important for the commission to be as transparent as possible and to allow the public a robust ability to meaningfully participate in matters before the commission, and for the public to have at its, available to it well in advance, all materials to be presented and discussed at commission meetings. So I am going to put that on the agenda for our next meeting. And even if that's the only matter on the agenda, we will have a meeting next month to discuss that. I'm not currently aware of any other things scheduled for our November meeting. Are you aware of anything, Pam?
No, not at this point. I'm not.
Well, as we know, things happen and things come in, so that could change. Are there any other matters to be discussed today that you're aware of, Pam?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Well, then, commissioners?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sanchez. Yes.
I'm sorry. Just very briefly, with regard to item 8, I would ask Mrs. Noakes and Mr. Verheul to submit a proposed order on item 8, please.
If I may, Madam Commissioner, petitioners did submit a proposed order as an Exhibit 2 to their September 3rd filing that the commission is welcome to work with, but I can also adjust that as necessary if necessary. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Does that take care of that?
It does.
All right. Thank you. I believe that completes our work for today, and I will therefore adjourn our meeting right now at 11:29 a.m. Thank you all for participating and providing comment and your attention. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Pam, another successful meeting. You're on mute.
I think it went okay. I mean, technically.
I think you might want to.
Huh?
You want to end the recording? You want to stop the recording?
Well, don't I have to wait for like 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah, I guess. No, I think the advice was, I think the advice was to, that you could stop it, but don't end the meeting for 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, let me stop the recording then. So